Hello, everyone. Welcome to today's episode of Lisa V TV. And I have a great guest for you today that you're going to want to tune in and listen to. And she is a newly published author of a children's book that is really telling stories of healing and lessons for parents to be able to pass on to their children, especially in today's culture where there is so much attack on our children. So you're going to want to tune in as I interview my good friend, Erin McCormack. Hi, Erin.
Hi, Lisa. Thank you for having me.
I'm so glad to have you. I just am so excited for this interview, this conversation that we're going to have today, and I know that this is something that's been in the making for a long time for you in terms of your book. But before we get into that, let me just formally introduce you to our guests here today, to our listeners. So Erin was born in the forests and lakes of Northern Ontario, Canada, and she loves nature and water and the beauty of all God's creatures and creation, if I can get that out. And then she moved to Alberta to become a heavy equipment operator, then a welder, and she fell in love with Albertans and the mindset here. Leaving her career to become a stay-at-home mom, she started telling stories, her own stories, in her children's schools from grade 1 to grade 9 in 2015. And then in 2023, she finally started to get her books published. And the first of which is one we're going to talk about today, which is I Identify. And the next ones are coming out, and they will all be a part of a series called The Woodchuck Woods, which are healing stories and deep lessons for parents to teach their children about love, forgiveness, consequences, and rewards. Wow. I did not know you were a heavy equipment operator and a welder, girl.
Yeah, actually, I was in school to be a teacher. And on my first placement, I knew I would be fired. And so, the rules had changed. I wanted to be a teacher since I was 4 years old. And I went to school for it. And on my first placement, I realized that there's no more zeros anymore. Red ink was too traumatizing. You had to use purple and green ink. And I realized that teachers really walk on eggshells in their careers and they don't get
Wow.
paid for it. So I had a dream. God gave me a dream, and I moved to Alberta to become a welder. And I didn't even know what that was, but I followed that dream in 2 weeks after, and it's been uphill ever since.
Uphill. I love it. You are an adventurous girl from the time that I've known you. And all the things that I know you and your husband love to do these, how would you call them? Date nights that are very, very adventurous, very creative. And I just love, I would love it. You just share a little bit about that, because I think that's a unique part of who you are as well.
Oh my goodness. So we've always put our marriage first and our children second, and that's not very popular with some people. But we really do believe that we need to be together after the kids are gone. So we have date night. It used to be 2 dates a week when the kids were really little, and we had to get babysitters, and we would do the craziest things, and we still kind of do. We do like segwaying through the river valley. I've got like 8 wigs, and I'll just get dressed up and be somebody else, or don't feel like washing my hair, put something on, you know what I mean? Like,
Yes. Yeah.
yeah, we always have fun. We do date nights where we start off at one restaurant just for an appetizer and go down the strip and just pick different places to have different food. We meet people. We've met lifelong friends from some of these date nights. So
That's so cool. Yes, and I remember some of the ones you dress up in different eras, different period
oh, yeah,
clothes.
those are so much fun.
So much fun. Well, I know that you and I just caught up again after many years of just kind of following each other again and being loosely connected through which probably most of the world has been through the last number of years in terms of just being online. But you came out recently with a book called I Identify, which I have right here and I have read. And this is a children's book. It was also illustrated by Ricky Audi. Is that how you pronounce the last name?
Yep.
Ricky Audi. And I would love it, first of all, if you would let our listeners know what prompted you to write this children's book.
Well, I homeschooled during COVID 4 children, and it was amazing. I loved every minute of it. But my kids went to a school that I really did love, and they had the same teacher from grade 1 to grade 5. And I really respect these teachers and the school. And when I went back after COVID, my son tried public school and it wasn't for him. And he went back, and there was a little bit of an uproar happening when I came back to the school from parents, and what the parents were finding in the kindergarten room for books. Now, some of these books were pretty out to lunch, in my opinion. One had a picture of a doctor holding a brand new baby, and the caption basically said, "Doctors are humans too. They said I was a boy, but they don't know everything because they're just adults." And that got me thinking. I'm like, who publishes this? Like, how does this get published? And I realized that it could be self-published. We can all self-publish our own books, and then there's no limit to what we can say, whether it's truth or lies or total fiction.
Mm-hmm.
So in that regard, those books were not condoned by the school. Somebody brought them in, and then another parent found it, and that teacher was mortified, and the administration was mortified that there was multiple books like this, and they were all pulled. So it wasn't like it was intention from the school or anything like that. It was one person. But it made me realize that, hey, if this is out there and kids are getting access to this, well, then why can't we find truth and other ways to publish books that are going to help and heal and just not let them be as confused anymore,
Mm-hmm.
because the confusion is big.
It is, isn't it?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Especially with the younger children. Heck, you give me a menu with 30 items and I have to send the waitress back 3 times because I haven't decided. And I'm a grown adult.
That is so true. That's a great analogy for sure. There were studies done years ago about women, actually, because it said, wow, there's so many options now available for women today that they're probably happier and healthier. And because of all the options that we have available to us. And that what they found was actually the opposite, because there were so many things to choose from that many women were paralyzed in their choices, and they didn't know what to choose because they were confused, but they also didn't want to make the wrong mistake, the wrong choice. They didn't want to make a mistake. And so having so many choices can really be confusing. And especially at very, very formidable ages, where their whole identity, their personality, their whole worldview is being shaped during
Absolutely.
those foundational years. And with schools, as children, unless they're taught differently, children take everything that the teacher says as truth, or that happens within the institutional context of education. And so as parents, I know this is a big concern in our country, and as well as because of parents, their rights and their place in the children's lives are being limited, or trying to be limited right now.
Mhm.
And there's some providences. So this book it's called I Identify, and in here you talk about, and I'm going to get you to share a little bit about this book in a minute. But for example, in one page is I identify as musical, I identify as smart, I identify as adventurous. There's lovely pictures. I identify as perfectly made and uniquely me. I identify as a child of God. So what is it that you want to communicate to parents and to children with this book?
Well, going back to what you said about the education system and the teachers and children taking in everything that they get, I think that there's a disconnect, and parents aren't actually realizing the damage that can be done and how hard it is to reverse it if we're not talking about it at home. If we are actually being active and we are putting it on the schools to teach our kids, and and the world is kind of set up like that, where parents are working, they don't have a lot of time at the end of the day. Kids are given homework after school to occupy their time, when they should be having family time and time to listen and time to talk politics and talk religion at home. And that has been a faux pas for so long. And they're like, oh, we do not talk about these subjects. These are the most important subjects we can be talking to our children about. And it has been widespread for decades that we do not talk about these subjects because they're controversial. And what I like about this book and the way that I wanted to come across is I wanted to come across in love. And I wanted to show that children identify as all of these things in their everyday lives. They know who the strong kid is, or the fast one, or the brave one, or the adventurous one, or the funny one, the class
Mhm.
clown, right? They know who all those children are, and that's how they identify each other. Bringing in identity as something that's unseen and not their talents or their strengths and just their genitals or lack thereof or whatever you want to be, or a cat, that's confusion.
Mhm.
And it is not a full sense of identity. Actually, adults don't get their full sense of identity until they're around 25 years old. So
Mhm.
that's the worst part about this, is the confusion so young. Because
Mhm.
I don't know about you, but for me, heck, going from a teacher to a welder and a stay-at-home mom all before 25, like I was trying to find myself.
Yeah.
And like I was encouraged to try on different clothes and different groups and different sports and different
Mhm.
clubs. I
Yeah.
wasn't encouraged to try on different genders.
Mhm.
So I was encouraged to find my strengths in where I live and where in my groups and my spheres of influence.
Mm.
And that's what I feel like we need to get back to. Let's find our children's strengths and encourage them. Let's bring out their talents and let them run with it, because we need these talented human beings and the strength to be empowering for them for the future and for God's kingdom, essentially.
Mhm. That's so good. What I love about that, Erin, is I'm just thinking about how, even after school, kids do these tests to see what they're good at and, what jobs would be best suited for them. But if you start at a younger age to help them identify those things, own those things, it doesn't mean they can't develop other areas of like, or, interests and things like that. But it begins to positively affirm them in areas where God has made them, or even in their likes and desires, in terms of, musical instruments or
Mhm.
dancing or whatever it might be, or sports. So it helps them to just affirm their abilities in that way. And I think that would take a lot of stress off of, as they grow older too, to begin to identify, oh yeah, I'm really good at this. I did this, or my peers told me this, or my parents told me this, and to really have that confidence as they enter into the workforce or the adult world, or even in higher education to get a career. So I love that. I love that because it is actually a positive, empowering message that they're getting through these books at a very young age, and looking at their peers and being able to identify, like you said. I think that's so cool.
Yeah, I think that we need to focus on the positive, and especially with children. They
Mhm.
need to feel confident in themselves and not put down. And the one big problem with school nowadays is, or I guess it's been for a while, is that they want children to be widespread. Like let's not focus on anything. Like you are loving writing. Oh, but it's time to stop writing now because we have to go to math,
Mhm.
right? So when they find out what it is, that's what they should be doing after school, is their strengths and what they love. And if it's
Mhm.
writing or reading or any sport, or like playing or drawing,
Yeah.
those things need to be encouraged. Because look at Einstein, he couldn't tie his shoes, but he changed the world scientifically.
Yeah.
And he was actually encouraged by his mother to focus solely on that and not on his weaknesses, which he had plenty, right?
Exactly. It's so good. It reminds me again of a book I read years ago that really helped me in terms of what to focus on in life, because often we hear this message, oh, we need to live a balanced life, especially as women. We need to have a balanced life, which, in my opinion, what I've come to discover, that it's actually impossible to live a balanced life, and we're not meant to, because at any given time we're focused on something more intently than other things. And there's just balance is what's the word I'm looking for, is it actually means that you're static, that you're not moving forward, if you think
Mm.
about scale. So, but I read this book by Marcus Buckingham, and he talked about again, going back to women, because that was what the context of the book was. It was in the context of what the happiest, most successful women do. And he said they lean into their strength zones. They don't live balanced lives. They actually lean into their strength zones and operate more fully from those places, which is exactly what we're talking about here, is identifying those areas of strengths, or at least beginning to plant seeds of encouragement and affirmation so children can begin to really take ownership of that, or just to begin to explore some of those things that they may like or are good at.
Absolutely. And on that note, when I was writing this book, I made sure that it was different children having different strengths and different characteristics. But, women are not held to the same account. Look at the Proverbs 31 woman.
Mm-hmm.
Is that possible?
Mm-hmm.
Maybe, with the grace of God. But really, it's like, if you're good at one of those things and you lean into one of those things and you're great at one of those things,
Yeah,
then that's success.
exactly.
And I wrote an article for a women's magazine about, I'd say probably in 2020, and it was to do with the legacy of women.
Mm.
And when you look at women and men in history, it is complete. There's not a woman that I could find that on purpose wanted her name written down in history. It was Laura Secord, or, it was women, or Amelia Earhart. She did it because she loved to fly and she wanted to be the first woman.
Exactly.
It wasn't because of fame and fortune forever.
No.
It was just something like, I know I could do this. Let's do this. Right. And so it's just, women tend to have their legacy wrapped in their children. They raise up the next generation and they do well. And then that continues as their legacy. Whereas men are a little different. They want their names in the history books and they want to make big moves and big changes and that kind of stuff. So in knowing that, and if we have our strength and we are able to move forward and be nurtured and encouraged, there is amazing things that we can accomplish when we have a focus and when we're encouraged to use that focus.
It's so good. I just love it. So tell us a little bit about, because you've got some other books that are going to be coming out soon from, I think you called it the Woodchuck Wood series. Yes. So tell us a little bit about those so we can keep an eye out for those. And by the way, where can our viewers, our listeners buy this book?
www.iidentifybook.com.
Fantastic.
So that makes it really easy.
Yeah.
And I'll link to the website as well for the other books that are coming. So since 2015, I have been telling stories in schools. And you know what? It happened with a teacher being like, this is the issue I'm having in this class. And I would go to sleep and I would have this dream and I'd wake up and I'd have the story. And so the next one, called The Sparrow and the Raccoon, is a story about rumors and reputation and misconception. And so during this story, it's really very dear to my heart, these other stories, because they're all lessons for parents to be able to teach children. And in a way that it's going to be remembered. We all know the story of the boy who called wolf.
Yes.
Everybody knows that story, and you know the lesson of the story.
That's right.
And so that is sort of along the lines. I would like parents to be able to say, hey, remember the sparrow? Remember what the sparrow did to the raccoon? Right? And be able to have that reference because it's a deep, meaningful thing that happened.
So good.
Yeah, so that's the next one that's going to come out, hopefully before Christmas. But I'm realizing that this I Identify book is something that I should be focusing a little bit more on. It is, it was something that was very, very impromptu. This was not something that I intended to initially write. But when I told them what I was going to say to the school, and they're like, you should publish that. And then I just did one step and I'm like, oh, okay. Next step. Oh, okay. And it just ended up a book. And I've had some really positive feedback from it. So I'm really looking forward to the Woodchuck Wood series. The second book is going to be called The Second Little Turtle. And it has to do with innocence and how to keep innocence and how to trust your parents to hold knowledge for you until you're bigger and stronger to hold it yourself.
Oh, wow. I love that concept.
Yeah, me too. I cry when I tell these stories, and yet, like eventually I won't. And then the third one that's already written and ready to go is the lesson in it is your entitlement robbed you of the blessings you deserved. So all of these, there's about 10 in the series, and those are going to be the first three that will be coming out right away.
Wow, wow. I can't wait for them to come out. These are so valuable. So are these stories that you have been telling over the years?
Yeah, so the Woodchuck Wood series is kind of the stories that I've been telling over the years. It's hard to like pinpoint right down to making one version of the story, as I've been telling these stories for years and changing it up depending on the classroom, the situation, whatnot. So that's actually the hurdle I have is just to solidify one version. But
Right.
yeah, I have all these stories in my head, and it's about time I put them out on paper.
I'm so excited for you to do that. And based on your upbringing, are these stories that came out of your childhood or when you talk about the Woodchuck Wood series?
Well, half my family's Irish, and so the campfire and the storytelling and like it's just kind of innate where we just tell stories. And the children growing up, we would turn the channel to the symphony channel, and I would just tell a story according to it, to the point when the kids got older and they're telling stories to the music in the symphony channel. So stories are what make up childhood, what make up
Mhm,
imagination that's way better than TV or all those things.
mhm.
So yes, growing up, my mother, she's a storyteller. Let me tell you, my grandfather was. Apparently, I never met him. He died when I was very young. But yeah, the storytelling is something that I came from. I grew up in the backwoods. We only had stories. I'd tell stories to the animals I would listen, to the fish I'd catch. and, and so, yeah, it's just definitely something. It's an homage to back home. I chose animals. Not all my stories ever had animals in it,
Mhm.
but I chose animals because it could be a series. It could be, regular characters and things that children can connect with.
Yeah, so good. Well, thank you so much for coming on today and sharing with us about this valuable book that you have written. And for those who are listening, if you I highly recommend you go to iidentifybook.com and purchase your copy and buy a few for your friends or gifts to so that they can begin to read them to the children. Great storybook gift for children, even starting out with school right now coming up. For those who are in the States, you've already started, and for those in Canada, starting here in another couple of weeks. What a great idea to begin to place these in the hands of children, to begin to share them with each other, and keep an eye out for the next series that's coming out. And I think you said, Erin, that at that website, you'll also be able to find those other ones when they come out. Is that right?
Yes, it will be thewoodchuckwoods.com, but it all goes to the same place. So you can
Perfect.
find it. Yeah, absolutely.
Perfect. Thank you so much, Erin. Thank you for coming on here today and sharing with us this valuable resource that you've put together.
Thank you so much, Lisa. I really appreciate you and what you're doing. And, like this is a big, big project collectively for women, for the future, for God's kingdom. And I'm really proud of you.
Aw, thank you, Erin. I love you, girl. All right. Thank you, everyone, for tuning in. Make sure you share this and like it and pass it on to women in your world who you know will benefit from this and you want to hear this great storybook. And because I know that women love, well, not just women, people want to gather around purpose and they want to have something that will help really empower their children as well as them feeling empowered. And so, what a great tool to put in the hands of your children or neighbors. And so, I want to strongly encourage you that you can have a voice too, just by even passing on some of these tools that people like Erin are putting together so that we can have resources to make the world a better place and to create and to pour into the children so that they become positive and powerful influencers where they are. So, thank you, everyone. I look forward to seeing you next time. Have a beautiful day.